Far away from any known human settlement, beyond the star maps and forgotten flight paths, there was a quiet corner of the galaxy where no one had traveled for centuries. In that lonely stretch of space, a group of explorers from another world were studying the remains of long-vanished civilizations. They were peaceful beings, curious and gentle by nature, driven by one question that had fascinated their kind for generations. What happened to the humans? For thousands of years, humans had expanded across space, building colonies on distant planets, but somewhere along the way they disappeared. Their cities turned to dust, their signals faded into silence, and only traces of their technology remained. Some believed humans had destroyed themselves. Others thought they had moved to another dimension or evolved into something beyond understanding. But no one really knew. One day, while scanning a region near the edge of the Orion Spur, an alien research vessel called the Aelora picked up something unexpected, a faint radio signal. At first, it seemed like nothing more than background noise, but when the crew filtered the data, a clear pattern appeared, rhythmic pulses rising and falling in a familiar human sequence. It was not a natural sound. It was structured, intelligent, it was language. The crew exchanged looks of disbelief. The signal was weak, almost buried under centuries of static, but its origin was unmistakable. It came from a small uncharted planet that had never appeared on any modern maps. The ship's captain, a calm and thoughtful being named Varen, ordered a full scan of the planet. What they saw on their monitors left the entire crew silent. The world below was beautiful, covered in green forests, silver rivers, and deep blue oceans that shimmered under two suns. But what caught their attention was something orbiting above the planet, a broken metallic ring that circled the globe like a giant crown. Pieces of it were still drifting in space, slowly falling apart. It was ancient and man-made. The captain leaned forward. "That's human design," one of the science officers said softly. The materials, the architecture, the layout, everything matched lost records from the early human expansion era. The aliens could hardly believe it. For centuries, no one had heard a single word from humanity, and now, here was proof that humans might have survived, hidden away, forgotten by time. The ship's scanners detected faint power readings from the surface. The signals were coming from what looked like small settlements scattered across the planet. There was no sign of large cities or advanced machinery, only small clusters of light and heat. Life existed there, intelligent life. But the readings didn't match any known alien species. The biosigns looked strangely familiar. Bren's voice broke the silence. "Prepare for descent." The crew gathered around the viewing deck as the ship glided through the planet's atmosphere. Golden clouds swirled around them, lit by sunlight that filtered through like warm fire. When they broke through, they saw wide stretches of land below. Valleys filled with forests, mountains capped with snow, and what looked like the remains of old metallic structures. From above, the ruins looked peaceful, almost like ancient temples reclaimed by nature. As the ship moved closer, they noticed something that made them pause. The old buildings were built in the same style as early human colonies. Even though vines and moss had covered the walls, the design was unmistakable. The aliens realized they were looking at a piece of human history that had survived hundreds of years. They landed in a large clearing near the edge of what used to be a human outpost. The air outside was warm and rich with oxygen, perfectly breathable. Strange bird-like creatures circled above, singing songs that echoed through the valley. The team stepped onto the soil carefully, scanning everything: the plants, the air, the ground. It was all alive and balanced, as if the planet itself had learned to heal from whatever happened before. They walked toward the nearest structure. It was a tall metal tower half buried in vines, its sides rusted and cracked. Near the entrance, they found symbols etched into the wall, faded letters that spelled out something in the old human language. The aliens translated it slowly. It read, "Horizon Colony, Sector 7. The name hit the captain like a shockwave. Horizon was the name of a legendary human mission from nearly 400 years ago, a colonization effort that had vanished without a trace. Historical records said their main ship, the Horizon Dawn, disappeared after entering a wormhole, and all contact was lost. No distress signals, no survivors. Humanity had mourned the loss and eventually forgotten. But now, here it was, the final resting place of that missing colony. Inside the structure, the explorers found old corridors filled with dust and silence. There were no signs of violence, only the slow decay of time. The walls still had flickering lights powered by ancient reactors that somehow hadn't completely died. In one room, they found screens displaying static, and a few still showed faded messages, system warnings, maintenance logs, and old video recordings that no one had seen in centuries. One of the crew members managed to restore a small portion of the archive. On the screen appeared a shaky recording. A human face filled the display. Tired eyes, a voice filled with both hope and fear. The translator converted the audio. "This is Commander Hale of the Horizon Colony. If anyone finds this, it means we failed to re-establish contact. The planet is habitable, but the atmosphere is changing faster than expected. We've lost half our supplies and the orbital systems are failing. We'll adapt if we can. Tell Earth we're alive. We're still trying." The message cut off abruptly. The alien stood there in silence, watching the frozen image of the last known human commander. The air inside the old base felt heavier. These people had been stranded here, left alone with no help, and somehow they had survived, at least for a while. But the most surprising discovery came next. When the explorers moved deeper into the valley, their scanners detected movement, real living beings nearby. The readings were unmistakably humanoid. The aliens stopped in their tracks, trying to confirm. Could it really be possible? They advanced carefully through the dense forest until they reached a clearing. There, standing under the sunlight, were people, human figures dressed in woven garments made from local plants and animal fibers. Their skin had slightly different tones, and their eyes had a strange reflective shine, perhaps an adaptation to the twin suns. But there was no doubt. They were human. The aliens watched in awe as the group of people noticed them. The humans froze, their expressions a mix of confusion and fear. For a few long seconds, no one moved. Then one of the humans stepped forward slowly, holding up a hand, not in aggression but as a greeting. The gesture was ancient, universal. The aliens recognized it from old Earth archives. It meant peace. The captain replied by lowering their head slightly, their own sign of respect. The air between them felt charged with history, as if two lost worlds had just met again after centuries apart. When the humans spoke, their language was strange but familiar. It was English but changed, mixed with sounds that didn't belong. It took the translator some time, but soon the meaning became clear. The humans were asking who they were, where they came from, and if they were from the sky. The phrase made everyone pause. The aliens realized that these humans no longer remembered their true origins. To them, Earth was no longer a real place. It had become a myth, a story told by their ancestors about a faraway paradise in the sky. The aliens felt both wonder and sadness. These people were the descendants of the Lost Horizon crew. They had built a new life here, learned to survive, and passed on fragments of their past through stories and traditions. But without technology, without communication, they had become isolated for centuries, turning history into legend. The captain carefully spoke through the translator, explaining that they came from another world, not as conquerors, but as explorers seeking to understand what became of humanity. The humans listened with wide eyes, their faces showing disbelief. One of them whispered something that the translator rendered as, "The sky gods have returned." The aliens exchanged uneasy looks. To these people, the visitors were not fellow explorers. They were divine beings from the heavens. The misunderstanding was both touching and troubling. As the suns began to set, the humans invited the aliens to their settlement. It was a small village built from wood, stone, and scraps of old metal taken from the ruins. The design was primitive yet clever, perfectly suited for the planet's climate. Children ran between the huts, and the air was filled with the smell of cooked food and burning herbs. Despite centuries of isolation, they had created a community filled with warmth and life. As night fell, the aliens sat around a fire with the villagers. The humans told stories about the Great Descent, when their ancestors fell from the stars and built the first shelters. They spoke of a time when the world was harsher, and how their people had learned to become one with the planet to survive. The aliens listened carefully, realizing these tales were not just myths. They were history disguised as legend. Before leaving, the captain looked up at the twin moons that glowed above the sky and felt a deep sense of awe. Against all odds, humanity had endured. They had been forgotten by the galaxy, but they had never given up. Their spirit lived on in this quiet world. As the Alora lifted off the next morning, the captain recorded a single entry. When the alien explorers returned to their ship that night, None of them spoke for a while. Each one was lost in thought, trying to make sense of what they had just seen. They had come expecting to find ruins or fossils, not living, breathing humans. It felt impossible, yet it was real. The humans on this planet were alive, building fires, raising families, and living as though time had stopped. The captain stood by the viewing window, looking down at the glowing village lights. The people down there had no idea that the rest of humanity had vanished long ago. They lived their lives believing that this world was their home, that they had always been here. The captain wondered if it would be cruel to tell them the truth, that they were the last known humans in the galaxy. By morning, the decision was made to study the colony more closely. The crew wanted to understand how these humans had survived for so many generations. Their technology was gone, yet their society seemed stable and peaceful. Something about that didn't add up. Normally, human colonies without support or advanced equipment would fail within decades, but this one had thrived for centuries. How? The explorers returned to the surface, this time landing near an area with what looked like large metal remains. From the air, it seemed to be the wreckage of a massive ship, likely the original Horizon Dawn colony vessel. As they approached, the ground was littered with rusted panels, broken machinery, and cracked glass. Nature had swallowed most of it, but the structure's shape was still recognizable. It must have crashed here long ago. The aliens carefully walked inside the broken hull. The air was heavy with dust and the smell of old metal. Faded markings on the walls told stories of the ship's former glory. Names of crew members, mission emblems, warnings written in English. They passed through corridors half filled with soil and roots, as if the forest itself had grown through the remains. It felt both peaceful and sad, like walking through a memory that refused to fade away. In one of the old rooms, they found storage containers still sealed. Inside were ancient supplies, rations, oxygen tanks, small tools, and clothing. Everything was old but surprisingly well preserved. They even found handwritten journals, filled with shaky ink that had somehow survived the centuries. One of the crew scanned and translated the words. The first page they read said, "We have decided to stay near the crash site. The ship cannot be repaired. The atmosphere is strange but safe. We will build homes here and try to grow food. We must believe that one day someone will find us." The aliens looked at one another in silence. These people had fought to survive after everything went wrong. They hadn't given up. Even in complete isolation, they had adapted, learned, and built a new beginning. As the explorers continued deeper into the wreckage, they found something even more fascinating. One chamber was filled with strange devices, machines that seemed to be growing living plants inside metal frames. The team realized it was a biolab, part of the ship's original terraforming system. This was where the first colonists had created new crops and tried to modify plants to survive on this planet. The walls still glowed faintly with green light, powered by the last bits of energy in the system. It was like stepping into the moment when life had first begun again after disaster. While examining the lab, one alien noticed a set of carvings near the entrance. It looked like someone had come back here years later and scratched words into the wall with a sharp tool. The message said, "We changed to survive. The planet accepted us." Those words echoed in the captain's mind. What did it mean, we changed? Was it a figure of speech or something more literal? The thought stayed with them. Outside, the humans were beginning to gather near the crash site. They watched the visitors with a mix of curiosity and caution. The aliens could see it in their eyes. The people didn't understand who they were, but they felt something familiar about them. When the captain approached, a few of the villagers stepped forward, holding simple offerings and fruits, flowers, and carved stones. It seemed to be their way of showing peace. The captain accepted the gifts respectfully and began asking gentle questions through the translator. The humans were hesitant at first, but slowly they began to talk. They said their ancestors had come from the Sky-Fire, a great burning light that fell from the heavens long ago. The first people, as they called them, were strong and wise. They taught their children how to build, hunt, and speak. But over time, many things were forgotten. The stars became stories, machines became sacred relics. The past turned into myth. The captain listened with quiet sadness. It was strange to hear humans talk about technology as if it were magic. Yet beneath the lost memories, there was still intelligence and reason. The villagers were skilled builders, farmers, and healers. They had created medicines from plants, tools from stone and metal, and language that carried deep history. Even without machines, they had found balance with the world around them. Later that evening, the aliens were invited to witness a gathering in the village. People sat around a large fire while elders told stories to the children. One of the tales described the falling star, the event when their ancestors arrived. The story said that the sky opened with light and thunder, and the world trembled as the gods descended. The humans believed their ancestors had been chosen by the planet itself, that they were meant to live here forever. They spoke of the bond, a connection between their people and the living world. They said the planet listened to them, guided them, and sometimes even healed them when they were sick. At first, the aliens assumed this was just a spiritual belief. But then something unusual happened. As one elder spoke, the air around the fire seemed to shimmer faintly, as if responding to the rhythm of the words. The plants nearby swayed even though there was no wind. The crew's scanners picked up a small burst of energy, not from technology but from the environment itself. It was as if the planet was alive, reacting to human emotion. The crew exchanged uneasy looks. Could the villagers' stories be based on something real? The next day, the aliens continued their study of the area. They set up scanners to learn more about the planet's ecosystem. The readings were strange. The planet's surface had a pulse, not literally like a heart, but a steady wave of biological energy that connected plants, soil, and water together. It seemed almost intelligent. The humans living here were part of that system, perfectly adapted to it. Their bodies had small differences compared to ancient humans, slightly stronger immune systems, sharper senses, and faster healing. Nothing extreme, but clearly signs of long-term adaptation. The captain began to wonder if the humans had somehow evolved alongside the planet, maybe even influenced by it. Could it be that this world had changed them, or had they changed themselves to survive? Later, while exploring deeper in the forest, the aliens came across a strange structure hidden under thick vines. It was not built like the village huts. It was older, far older. The walls were made of metal and stone, blending human design with something else, something organic. The captain ran a scanner along the surface, and the readings were confusing. The structure contained both synthetic and biological material. It was as if it had grown out of the ground instead of being built. Inside, they found what looked like a chamber used for study. On the walls were carvings, drawings of human figures standing beside strange shapes that looked like roots merging together. The message below read, "The earth inside listens to us. It gives and takes." One of the crew whispered that this must have been a place where the early colonists experimented to understand the planet. Maybe they had found something powerful, something that helped them adapt. But if so, why was it abandoned? As the sun began to set, the aliens returned to their ship deep in thought. The captain recorded a note in the log. "The humans here are different, not in heart but in form. The planet seems connected to them. We must learn what truly happened when the Horizon ship fell." From the observation window, they watched the villagers light their fires below. The scene was peaceful, almost dreamlike. Yet there was an unshakable feeling that something deeper lay beneath that peace. A mystery waiting to surface. That night, one of the scientists replayed the earlier message they had found carved inside the wreck. The voice of a long-dead colonist echoed softly through the cabin. "We changed to survive. The planet accepted us." The words lingered in the quiet air. What had they meant by that? And what exactly had the planet accepted them into? As the stars turned slowly above the sleeping world, the captain knew that the real discovery had only just begun. What started as a simple rescue of lost humans was now turning into something far more complicated, a story not just of survival, but of transformation. The next few days were full of discovery. The alien explorers spent most of their time moving between the human village and the old crash site, trying to connect the missing pieces of history. The people of the colony had slowly begun to trust them. At first, they kept their distance, watching from the edges of the forest. But soon curiosity grew stronger than fear. Children followed the visitors wherever they went, laughing softly, pointing at their strange glowing suits. The older villagers spoke to them more openly, sharing their stories about the past. Every word they spoke carried traces of forgotten truth. The aliens realized that these humans had passed down their history through storytelling, not technology. Nothing was written. Everything was remembered, changed slightly by every generation, shaped like clay by time. Some parts were clear, others sounded like dreams. But within those dreams, there were hints of what had really happened centuries ago. The captain and the research team decided to explore further beyond the village. The villagers warned them not to go too far into the forest. They said the deep woods were sacred, a place where the first ones had gone and never returned. According to legend, that was where the Earth spoke, where the ancestors met the planet itself. That made the aliens even more curious. They wanted to understand what the planet spoke really meant. So early one morning they set off. The forest was alive with sounds. Soft wind through the leaves, birds singing, the hum of unseen creatures. The ground glowed faintly under their feet, covered with moss that shimmered with tiny lights when touched. It was beautiful, but also strange. The planet seemed to react to movement almost like it was aware. After several hours of walking, they reached an area where the trees grew taller and thicker. Their scanners picked up faint power readings coming from underground, old machinery buried for centuries. The captain ordered the team to dig gently. What they found shocked them. Beneath the soil was a huge metal door, half buried and covered in vines. It was old, rusted, but still recognizable. It had the same design as the Horizon ship. After some effort, they managed to open it. A blast of cold, stale air escaped as they entered the underground structure. The walls were lined with pipes and cables, and the floor was marked with footprints, very old yet still visible. The lights flickered faintly, powered by the last bits of energy in the ancient system. The crew walked slowly, scanning and recording everything. Inside they found rooms filled with strange equipment. There were medical tables, data screens, and containers filled with samples of plants and soil. One of the screens came to life after they reconnected it to their portable power source. A series of logs appeared, old video files from the first settlers. The captain played the first one. The image of a human appeared on the screen, tired, covered in dust, but speaking clearly. "This is day 146 since the crash," the voice said. "The atmosphere is stable, but exposure is affecting some of us. Breathing is easy, but there are symptoms. Dizziness, vision changes, skin sensitivity. It's as if the air itself is trying to change us." The next video showed the same person weeks later. "We can't leave. We can't contact anyone. We've started studying the local plants. They produce energy unlike anything we've seen. They react to us, to our touch. It's possible they communicate through bioelectric signals." The logs continued, each one painting a clearer picture. The colonists had realized early on that the planet wasn't ordinary. The soil, the plants, even the air. Everything seemed connected like one living organism. The scientists among the crew had begun studying this connection, trying to understand how to survive without outside help. Then the tone of the logs changed. The faces became thinner, their voices more desperate. One recording showed a man whispering, "We've started adapting. The planet accepts us. Our bodies are changing and it doesn't hurt anymore. It feels natural." The aliens stared at the screen. That line again. "The planet accepts us." It was the same phrase carved into the wall of the wreck they had found earlier. The captain played the final log. It showed a group of humans standing in what looked like a laboratory. They were surrounded by glowing plants and their eyes had a faint shine. The lead scientist spoke softly. "This is no longer just survival. The planet is merging with us. It understands us. We are becoming part of it." The video ended. The screen went dark. For a moment, no one spoke. The silence in the underground chamber felt heavy, like the air itself remembered those voices. The aliens realized what had happened. The original colonists had somehow altered themselves to survive, not through technology, but through a biological connection with the planet's ecosystem. It wasn't forced or artificial. The planet had responded to their presence and slowly changed them from the inside out. The aliens looked at each other. It explained why the humans in the village were slightly different. The shining eyes, the quick healing, the strange way the plants seemed to respond to their emotions. They weren't fully the same as the humans who left Earth centuries ago. They were something new, something in between. The team collected all the data they could and returned to the surface. When they told the villagers about what they found, most of them didn't understand. The older ones simply nodded and said, "Yes, the planet gave us life." It was not a secret to them. It was simply the way things were. To them, the bond with the planet was sacred, not scientific. That night, the captain stood outside the ship looking at the two moons rising above the forest. The stars shimmered softly in the sky and the sounds of the forest echoed below. The captain felt a mix of admiration and unease. Humanity had done something impossible. They had survived by surrendering to nature instead of conquering it. But it also meant they had changed in ways that might never be reversed. One of the younger crew members spoke quietly. "Do you think they even remember being human?" The captain didn't answer immediately. "Maybe they don't need to," they finally said. "Maybe this is what being human became." The next morning, the villagers invited the explorers to join a ceremony. They said it was to thank the planet for the new season. The aliens watched as everyone gathered around a glowing tree in the center of the village. Its branches shimmered with soft light like stars trapped inside leaves. The people sang, their voices blending in a rhythm that felt alive. The ground beneath them pulsed gently as if the planet was listening. It was a moment of pure peace. The aliens recorded everything, not for science but for memory. They wanted to remember this feeling, this living proof that humanity had not vanished but transformed. Later, one of the elders approached the captain. His eyes glowed faintly under the twin suns. He spoke slowly, choosing his words carefully. "Long ago, our ancestors built great towers and flew among stars. But the stars forgot us. The planet did not. It taught us to listen instead of fight. Maybe that's why we are still here." The captain nodded. There was wisdom in his words. Humanity had been known for its ambition, always reaching outward, always building, always searching. But this colony had done the opposite. They had survived by turning inward, by listening to the world around them instead of trying to control it. Before leaving, the captain visited the underground facility one last time. They stood in silence where the scientists had made their final recordings. The captain gently touched the wall where the words were carved. "The planet accepted us." For the first time, the phrase didn't sound mysterious. It sounded beautiful. As the Aelora lifted off again, the captain looked down one last time. The humans waved from below, their faces warm and smiling. The planet glowed faintly under the sunlight, alive and peaceful. It was a strange world, but it was home to the last known descendants of Earth. Back on the ship, the captain wrote the next report. "We have confirmed the existence of the Horizon Colony. The inhabitants are human but adapted. Their survival is linked to the biological network of the planet. Their minds and bodies are in harmony with it. This may be the key to understanding not just human endurance but evolution itself." The final line of the report was simple but powerful. Humanity did not disappear. It changed form, and in doing so, found peace. The crew sat in silence as the ship drifted into orbit. Outside, the stars stretched endlessly, cold and silent. But for the first time in a long while, they didn't feel so empty. Somewhere out there, life had found a way, not through power or machines, but through connection. As the ship turned toward the next system, the captain took one last look at the planet's glowing surface. There was a strange feeling deep inside, a quiet understanding that this discovery was only the beginning. The past was no longer lost. It was alive, breathing, and waiting to tell its next story. The following morning began with an unusual silence. The air, once filled with the soft humming sounds of insects and birds, now seemed still. The alien explorers of the Aelora felt it the moment they stepped outside. It wasn't fear, not yet, just an eerie quiet, like the world was holding its breath. The captain and the science team decided to return to the village for one last round of research before leaving. They wanted to say goodbye properly, maybe even tell the villagers how special they were, descendants of lost humans who had found a new way of living. But when they reached the settlement, something felt off. The villagers were gathered near the glowing tree in the center of the village. Their faces were calm, yet their eyes were distant, as if they were listening to something only they could hear. When the captain greeted them, no one responded right away. A few moments later, one of the elders stepped forward. His voice was soft, but it carried an unusual tone. "The sky travelers have seen too much," he said. "The planet remembers everything you touched." The captain felt a chill run down their spine. It wasn't a threat, but it wasn't a welcome either. The alien crew exchanged uneasy looks. Something had changed, something deep within the people. Trying to ease the tension, the captain smiled gently. "We didn't mean any harm. We only wanted to learn about your history, about your ancestors." The elder's expression softened for a moment.
"Our ancestors came from the sky like you."
But they forgot the old ways. The planet taught them to listen. You must listen too. The villagers began to hum a low tune, the same one they often sang at night. But this time, the air around them started to shimmer faintly. The soil trembled lightly and the lights on the alien scanners flickered with interference. One of the scientists whispered, "It's the same frequency we detected before, the one from the planet's core." The captain realized what was happening. The people weren't just singing, they were connecting. Their song was somehow linked to the energy flowing through the planet. It was as if the world itself was singing back through them. Later that evening, the crew returned to their base camp near the landing site. They were shaken but fascinated. They had come across many strange civilizations before, but nothing like this. One of the younger researchers suggested taking biological samples from the villagers for closer study. The captain hesitated. "We can't treat them like test subjects," they said. "They're people, not experiments." Still, the idea lingered. If they could understand the biological link between the humans and the planet, it might answer questions no one had ever solved before. The crew agreed to only collect samples from the environment: soil, water, plants, nothing invasive. As night fell, the wind began to blow stronger. The glowing plants outside flickered like candles in a storm. Suddenly, the communication panel in the camp crackled to life. It wasn't the ship. It wasn't a crew member either. It was a faint voice, broken but human. "Why? Are you here?" The crew froze. The signal came from somewhere underground, not from any of the villagers, but from beneath the forest itself. The captain tried to respond, but the signal faded. The scanners detected a weak energy pulse from deep below, near the same lab they had visited earlier. Without wasting time, the captain ordered a small team to investigate. They followed the readings back to the underground door hidden in the vines. The faint light beneath it was pulsing again, just like before. This time the door was slightly open. The team entered carefully, lights cutting through the darkness. Inside, they found the same chamber with the giant root system. But now, it was glowing brighter and the ground trembled softly like it was breathing. The air smelled of earth and electricity. Suddenly, the captain's translator picked up faint words, not from any speaker, but from the environment itself. "Do not take them away." It was a voice, calm yet echoing everywhere at once. The crew looked around in shock. The captain whispered, "It's communicating." The voice came again, clearer this time. "They are part of me. You do not belong." The team backed away slowly. They didn't want to provoke anything. The captain spoke softly, almost respectfully. "We mean no harm. We only wanted to understand." The voice replied, "Understanding is change. Change is pain." Then the light dimmed and everything fell silent again. They hurried back to the surface. The villagers were waiting near the entrance, standing quietly, as if they knew where the crew had gone. Their expressions were neither angry nor welcoming, only calm, distant like people in a dream. The elder spoke again, his tone firm but gentle. "You spoke to it. Now it knows you. It sees through your eyes." That night, strange things began happening on the Aelora. The ship's sensors detected unknown energy signatures around the planet. The communication systems flickered on and off. Some of the crew reported hearing faint whispers in their minds, not words but emotions like sadness, curiosity, and warning. One crew member described a vivid dream of walking through the forest while roots grew around their feet, gently holding them in place. In the dream, a soft voice whispered, "Stay, become one with us." When they woke up, their hands were trembling. The captain tried to keep everyone calm. "It's only psychological. We've been exposed to strong biosignals. It can affect the mind," they said, trying to convince themselves as much as the crew, but deep down they knew it wasn't just imagination. The connection between the planet and living beings was real, and it was spreading. The next day, the villagers invited the captain and the crew to join a ceremony before their departure. It was held at sunrise near the glowing tree. The people gathered in a circle, humming softly, their hands touching the ground. The captain hesitated, but out of respect joined them. As the humming grew louder, the tree began to glow brighter. Tiny lights drifted through the air like fireflies. The ground pulsed gently beneath them. Then for a brief moment, the captain saw something, not with their eyes, but in their mind. Memories, the crash of the horizon dawn, the colonists struggling to survive, the experiments, the fear, the hope, and finally, the moment when the planet itself reached out to them, not as a monster, but as a savior. The vision ended with the elder's voice echoing softly in their thoughts. Now you see what we see. The planet is not our prison. It is our home. It gave us life when the stars abandoned us. The captain felt a deep sense of peace and sadness at the same time. These people weren't controlled. They were part of something greater. Something they had chosen, even if they didn't fully understand it. But peace didn't last long. When the ceremony ended, one of the younger villagers suddenly stepped forward and said in a trembling voice, "The planet is stirring. It feels your machines beneath the soil." Before anyone could react, the scanners on the Aelora picked up a strong energy surge from below the surface, far stronger than before. The readings showed movement deep within the crust. The captain ordered everyone back to the ship immediately. Once on board, the crew worked quickly to stabilize their systems. The planet wasn't attacking, but it was clearly reacting. The same pulse they had detected earlier was now repeating in steady waves, almost like a heartbeat. The ship's instruments recorded the pattern. It was identical to the signal embedded in the villagers' DNA. It was all connected. The humans, the planet, and whatever was beneath the surface. They were one living network. The captain sent a transmission to the Galactic Council reporting everything that had happened. But halfway through the message, the transmission was cut off by interference. On the monitor, faint symbols appeared. Not alien, not human, but organic patterns that looked like roots spreading across the screen. Then a calm voice echoed through the communication system. "You have seen. Now you must remember. And leave." The lights flickered, and the connection was lost. The captain gave the order to prepare for departure. The villagers watched silently from below as the ship lifted into the sky. None of them tried to stop it. Instead, they raised their hands to the heavens, as if blessing the travelers. As the Aelora rose higher, the planet's glow faded into the distance. The captain stood by the observation window, staring down at the green world below. "They didn't need saving," they said softly. "They found their way. And maybe they found something we never will." One of the crew members asked quietly, "Do you think we'll ever come back?" The captain didn't answer. Instead, they looked at the faint pulse still visible on the ship's monitor. The heartbeat of the planet steady and strong. It was still there, watching, waiting. The report they would send later would change how the galaxy saw humanity forever. The lost colony wasn't lost at all. It had become something new, something both human and not. Alive and part of a world that remembered everything. And deep beneath that peaceful surface, the ancient presence that had spoken to them was still awake, silently aware that others might come one day, and ready to decide whether to accept or reject them. After the ship the Aelora left the planet's atmosphere, the crew felt a strange mix of relief and sadness. They had discovered something beyond imagination, a human colony that had survived by becoming one with its planet. But even as the world below grew smaller and smaller, no one felt peace. Something still didn't add up. The captain sat in the observation deck, staring quietly at the planet's soft glow. It looked so calm from space. Green oceans, silver clouds, and faint patterns of light that shimmered like veins beneath the surface. It almost looked alive. Maybe it really was. One of the researchers entered the room holding a small device. "Captain," they said, "I think you should see this." They placed the device on the table. A holographic projection appeared, showing a map of the planet's energy network. Every part of the surface was connected to a central point deep underground, far below where the labs had been found. "This is the source," the researcher said softly. "All signals, all patterns, all life energy, and it all starts here." The captain frowned. "How deep?" "Almost at the core," the researcher replied. "But there's something else. The signal didn't stop when we left orbit. It's still reaching out. To us." The words hung heavy in the air. Could the planet still sense them, even from space? The captain checked the ship's instruments. The energy readings were faint but steady, like a heartbeat following them. That night, the crew couldn't sleep. Some felt uneasy. Others couldn't stop thinking about the people they left behind. A few admitted they missed the planet's quiet songs, the hum that had filled the air, the calm that seemed to come from the ground itself. It had been strange but somehow comforting. The next morning, something unexpected happened. The ship's central computer began to display unknown symbols again, the same root-like patterns they had seen before. Then a message appeared, written in both alien and human script. "You cannot understand what we are until you see what we were." The captain and the science team looked at one another, speechless. "It's reaching out to us again," the researcher whispered. Before anyone could react, the screens filled with light. The ship's sensors began replaying images that weren't from their cameras. They were memories, not theirs, but the planet's. They saw the Horizon Dawn descending through the stormy sky centuries ago. The ship was damaged, burning, but the colonists managed to land. The air was toxic, the soil unstable, yet the people refused to give up. They built shelters, planted crops, and prayed that rescue would come. But no one did. Then came the sickness. The first settlers began to weaken. The planet's microbes were unlike anything they had known. Medicine failed and technology slowly broke down. Desperate, the scientists turned to genetic research. They studied local plants and discovered a strange pattern. Every living thing shared the same energy signature, like a shared heartbeat. That was when the first experiment began, not out of ambition but survival. They tried bonding human cells with the planet's life forms. At first nothing worked. Then something did. A child was born who could breathe the air naturally. Another could heal wounds faster than normal. It wasn't a miracle. It was evolution, guided by human hands but shaped by something much older. The memories shifted again. Years passed. The colonists stopped calling themselves humans. They began calling themselves children of the soil. They built their homes around the living trees. And their songs changed, not prayers to the stars, but songs of gratitude to the world beneath their feet. And somewhere deep underground, the planet began to respond. It sent them dreams, guiding their hands, shaping their hearts. It didn't control them, it welcomed them. It offered them a bond. The last image showed the planet's core, a vast glowing structure made of roots and light, pulsating like a heart. The captain realized that this wasn't just energy, and it was consciousness. The planet was alive, aware, and it had chosen to protect these humans. The light faded, and the ship's systems returned to normal. The crew sat in silence, shaken by what they had just seen. The captain finally spoke. "We thought they were lost, but maybe they were found. They didn't just survive. They became something new, something in harmony with their world." The others nodded quietly. There was awe in their eyes and a little fear. Because if a planet could think and care, what did that mean for the universe? They decided to continue monitoring the planet from orbit for a few more days. During that time, they noticed something extraordinary. The energy pulses began to shift in rhythm, aligning perfectly with the ship's own power systems. It was as if the planet was syncing with them, saying goodbye. Before leaving, the captain recorded one final message for the Galactic Council. "We came searching for lost humans. We found life that has evolved beyond the limits we know. The colony has become one with its planet, not through domination but through understanding. This world is alive and its people are part of its heartbeat. We recommend no interference. Let them be. They are not lost. They are home." When the message was complete, the captain looked out at the planet one last time. The light beneath its surface pulsed softly, almost like it was breathing. For a brief moment, the captain imagined that the planet was watching them, perhaps even smiling. As the Allura turned toward deep space, leaving the planet behind, the crew felt a quiet peace settle over them. They had witnessed something no one else ever had, the merging of human will and nature itself. But deep below the surface, inside the glowing heart of the planet, the ancient consciousness stirred once more. It had been awake for centuries, long before humans arrived. It remembered everything. The first roots that touched sunlight, the storms that shaped its mountains, the moment humans came and changed its destiny. Now it carried their memories too. Their fears, their hopes, their love for life. It had become not just a world Mia, but a keeper of stories holding the past and the future together in its living heart. One day, perhaps, the planet thought, others would return. Maybe more humans, maybe others from the stars. And when that time came, it would decide again, whether to welcome them or to protect itself. But for now, all was calm. The skies were clear, the forests glowed softly, and the people, the new children of Earth's lost colony, lived in peace, unaware that their story had already reached the stars. Far away, aboard the Aelora, the captain looked out at the endless dark and said quietly, "Maybe this is what life was meant to be, not conquering worlds, but becoming part of them." The words stayed in their mind long after the stars swallowed the planet's light. It wasn't just another discovery. It was a reminder that life doesn't always need to expand to survive. Sometimes it only needs to listen. And somewhere deep within the heart of that distant world, the planet listened to.